This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, the Rules and Government Relations Committee, this is March 24, 2026. It's now 6 p.m. We're meeting to discuss an agenda item which came to us last week. First of all, the players at the table, I would ask the councilors. I'm J.P. Kwasinski, the chair of the Rules Committee.
I'm Amanda Newton.
Alicia Jadzak, I'm the City Council Vice President and Precinct 2.
So everybody knows who we are, and we have the mayor of our city. Everybody knows
everybody.
Salem, Derby. You know everyone, and everyone knows you, for better or for worse.
We'll get it straight. We'll get it straight.
You've got it.
Yeah.
So sometimes there are lots of different issues, and we're here to discuss one of them. A matter was brought before the council, referred to committee. Let me put something on the record first of all that I wanted to read, just so we all were aware. And I informed the city clerk today, and I want everyone in the city to know that I am writing to inform you in the city that my wife has health insurance provided as a retired teacher in Hatfield, Massachusetts, and that Hatfield gets its insurance through the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. As the mayor has proposed a plan modification for the Easthampton employees, I'll participate in those discussions as they're a separate matter from health insurance provided through Easthampton through the trust. That's an entirely separate matter. I'm comfortable discussing that. If the mayor were to ask for permission for some reason to relieve the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, or that were to be the issue, and to go to another plan for whatever reason, and that was the request, I would not be in a position to have a role in the matter formally as a counselor. So I would have recused myself from said discussions. I wanted to put that on the record. I don't believe anyone else here has that. The council has various members who are members of the group insurance commission, should that ever become an issue. But that's not what I understand the issue to be. So we're happy to proceed. That being said, my understanding is the mayor has asked for plan modifications. I would ask the mayor to explain those plan modifications, or your representative to do so.
I'll take it from here.
Okay.
To talk about this, because I have not actually requested any plan modifications. So let me just back up.
I'm sorry, that's how it appeared on our agenda.
Can I just interject really quickly? Because we have a lot of people in the room. Could we just do a quick go around for the minutes? So that way we have a record of who's actually here. So we've already got Emily and then Mayor. And then if we just go around.
My name's Nate Millard. I actually live in town at 286 Level Road. I'm president of the Union DPW, Union A.
Christine Zadanek. I live here in town on 37 Taft Ave, and I'm president of Ashmead.
Ryan Murphy, and I'm the representative for the police supervisors.
Scott Philip, and I'm the president of the Patrolmen's Union.
Kathy Dunham, and I represent working school department.
Eric Bottacini, I represent the custodian union.
Michael Gomez. Adam Sarek, I am the EEA president.
Didn't either.
Sorry, I know Adam.
Jason Dunham, I'm a member of the Easthampton Firefighters.
I'm Gilly Stanton. I'm also a member of the Easthampton Fires Union and the chairperson of the Insurance Advisory Committee. Great. And then we have some folks online, just so everyone knows. We have President Denham, Maddie Palmer, Councillor Kyan Jammer McQuaid, City Auditor, and just make sure, and the COA Director, I believe. Great. Thank you, everyone.
That being said, now the roll call's been taken. Everybody's here. Mr. Mayor.
So to clarify, I have not requested any changes through the trust. Just to back up a little bit, there was a vote 3 weeks ago now
For Connecticut Insurance Trust vote on February 25th.
February 25th, there was a vote between two options. Before that, we did meet with union representatives to discuss those options. One was about a 17% increase for next year, and the other one was about a 12.5% increase with some changes in deductibles and copays. The union representatives expressed to us that they were not interested in the 12.5%. We agreed, and that's how we voted. Unfortunately, we were not on the winning side of that vote. So we ended up getting stuck with the 12.5% with deductible changes and copay changes. So that triggered a process in which we would now have to figure out how to bargain that change, because it's a change in the plan, which means it's different from what was in the contracts. And so we need to navigate that. The trust is working with a consultant called the HILB Group. And so the HILB Group has been kind of guiding the trust's members through a process of making sure that we do everything in the correct way. The HILB, HILB.
Yes, correct.
And so, and all of these documents I'd be happy to share with anybody, honestly. And I imagine some of the union representatives have some of these. But what they suggested right off the bat was to streamline the process of making this kind of move in a timely fashion and to avoid having to negotiate with each union individually. To adopt Chapter 32B, Sections 21 through 23 is what they suggested. And we talked to our labor attorney. He basically was like, you need to get this done as soon as possible because, time is of the essence, and we want to make sure that we, don't get timed out on any of this stuff. So one of the things that kind of came to light, and Councilor Kwasinski, we talked about this last night, and I asked the HILB consultant today, when we went back and looked at the different sections, 21 and 22 clearly talk about the process of creating a smaller advisory committee that kind of can negotiate these changes and figure out a way to take some of the savings that are going to be realized by the change in plan to give them back to the employees. And part of that is, a 25% return to employees of any savings that are realized from the plan change. And so this group, I think it's not a PLC, it's something else.
PEC. So it is, yeah.
Yep.
Public Employees Committee is what it's called.
So all the unions would have a seat at that table to be able to negotiate this going forward. It just wouldn't be the reason why the HILB Group and our attorney suggested we go this path was so we didn't have to negotiate individually with each subgroup, basically. So everybody's represented in one group. So one of the things that we kind of examined as we went through that, 21 and 22, perfectly applicable. 23 was a little concerning. And when I asked today why everybody was suggesting that we adopt 23, they just thought it would be more expedient later if you ever had to leave the trust. The reason why I kind of asked today, I sent all of the committee members an email, and we sent all of the union representatives an email asking to remove Section 23 from this discussion. The reason for that is removing Section 23 basically takes away the specter that we're going to make any significant plan changes, like leaving the trust without going through union channels. And because that's not the intent. We're not trying to leave the trust without, and that's basically what 23 does. It allows us, without bargaining, it allows us to leave the trust. And we're not in that place. The only time we'd be able to get to leaving the trust if that was what was the right thing to do eventually. The deadline is December. So, that's pretty far off. We're not up against that deadline. So that's why we decided to remove that piece. And I know that when I was, I've been on the other side of the table with this very discussion. I don't know if anybody was there for that. I think it might have been 2013 or
2011.
it was 2011. I was the deciding vote to stay in the trust when we voted this down. 23. It was specifically section 23 was what we voted down because Mayor Tausnick wanted to leave the trust. So I understood that particular section did have some baggage, and I wanted to make sure we were focused on what we needed to focus on, which was making sure that we can, in good faith, negotiate these changes that are happening regardless of anything we do. It's the trust that's making these changes. To be able to have a streamlined process where everybody has a voice and everybody has a say, but it's not, piecemeal, individual. Basically our attorney was like, you don't want to do this piece by piece. It's going to take too long and it's going to be really messy. So that's why 21 and 22 was suggested to us by the Hill group and by our attorney.
Thank you. Normally, we go directly to public speak at this point. I would like to be able to ask for suspension of the rules, if that would be appropriate. I would entertain such a motion.
Yes, I will motion to suspend.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Essentially, what we're saying is typically one would be limited to a certain period of time to speak, and then they would be not allowed, we wouldn't be able to engage. Really sounds like we need to talk about all of this. And so the suspension of the rules will facilitate that, enabling us to go ahead and answer questions, engage. And I would hope everyone would feel free to ask the human resource person or the mayor questions, and we can have some dialogue. Because I kind of think if we talk together, we can get through this relatively easily and with some good solutions. So that being said, I will open up public speak at this time. If anyone cares to comment in the room, specifically from the public.
One thing I believe that when Mayor Doherty was talking about,
again, state,
my name
just for the record.
Jason Don. So when the mayor was talking about that vote that he had, I believe the city council's position at that time to the mayor was, why don't you go back and have a conversation with the unions, and if you can't come to an agreement, then come back to city council and we'll look at adopting legislation. I think that's important to point out because after the vote didn't go the way we had thought, there was no conversation. There was nothing. And I can show you past history from 1990, 35 years ago, how all the unions collectively bargained. I have contracts on health insurance with all the unions signing papers together.
So let me ask a question, if I may. So despite the fact that the contracts may expire at different times and different, so you enter into a
binding agreement.
Outside of that process to say there's an issue we need to work out with the city collectively, and we're just going to all get together.
And there's no sunset clause on the contracts, correct?
Right.
So what happens is that the insurance advisory committee that we have, they do a lot of the work. If they cannot legally negotiate, but what they do is they facilitate the negotiations between the city and all the unions. And so every member of every labor union is in that committee, is represented.
Is represented on the committee.
Is represented? And then one from the city can be appointed, and then one from the retirees. And when it is going to affect contractual things, that's when we actually have all the union presidents come in and sign it. So the insurance advisory committee does all the work, and they talk with the city. They do any research. They look at plan designs. They compare. They look at providers. They do everything. They come back with a recommendation. The city and the IAC work out what they feel would be palatable for everyone. All the union presidents come in one day. They sign the paper. It's done.
Right.
It's not a big process. It's not a huge process, and it still keeps our collective bargaining.
So it keeps the collective bargaining in place and enables everybody to participate at the same time. So essentially what you need, Mr. Mayor, I think, is to have everybody be able to participate in the process. And you're looking for a way not to negotiate with individual unions separately.
I mean, that was what was
What was
suggested to us.
by the consultants.
But that's, so we
So you
do
have-
that right now.
We do that now, and we have that process. It's been implemented
At least 7 times where we
7
actually
times
signed.
since 1990.
Correct. No, every year there's plan design changes, whether it's an increase in a copay or a medication change or whatever. And we don't, we don't impact bargain anything. Every single year there's some sort of change. What happens is the insurance advisory committee does what I told you. They're very active. They do all the research. They give a letter of recommendation. Usually it's like, we're going to stay with a trust because obviously comparatively to the GIC and other plans, it's still more affordable and still gives the best amount of coverage. You know, and that's the insurance advisory committee's job. I mean, I can show you in past history where they actually have stopped some things from happening that would have cost the city a ton of money. And being as active as they are in going through this process, they know the fiscal responsibility, but you know, we want to have the best health insurance we can at the best price that we can. And the insurance advisory committee takes a lot off of the city, the burden of even, you know, personnel director and the mayor, because they'll do all the research and they do all the background and they come out with the information, and so that we know that we're making the best decision for everyone. And that process is in place right now. The new process with 21 and 22 is the PEC, the employee public employee committee. It's a way to streamline and to basically give very little time for reactions or to do the research. And it's a way for cities or towns to push through their agenda. It is. And I know that there's a 25% savings. When the mayor was speaking about that, you get to take 25% of the total savings and the employees get to choose that's a one-time thing. So whether it's a holiday or something else, and then it's that you don't see any of those savings ever again. And that really is the savings that's cost shifted onto the employees, right? So you have ways that you can save. A premium increase, obviously, is we have a split, right? When it started in 1990, it was 85-15. Those times are long gone, right? We all know that, and that's for every municipality out here. But when that happens, you know, everybody pays more, and then there's the cost shifting. And the deductible plan, which was introduced this time, which we have been steadfast to not have a deductible, because when you start a deductible, and it is low right now, but that's the entry one. I can tell you, my neighbor is a writer for Maya, and she said that's the entry. It goes up to 1,000, and then the GIC you're at 2,000. Some GIC tier 3 you're at 3,000, all the way up to 5,000. For a family, for a deductible every single year. So we were always steadfast on not having the deductibles and changing, even if it was changing co-pays or medications or other things that we could do. So,
did anyone else have specific questions for the current speaker?
Thank you.
Let's start with Councilor Chatham.
Thank you. I would love to get your input with the bargaining process, because I know you've been part of the union for a very long time. You know a lot of the history with this as well. And I want to kind of highlight the point that the mayor's brought up around what the attorney has sort of advised as a potential issue with the time it takes to bargain individually with each union. And obviously that takes a lot of time. Can you explain whether it's historical or in the future, as I guess a spokesperson for a lot of the unions that are here tonight, how does that actually work? Like, will each union need to be bargaining with the mayor individually, or can you come together, and are you on the same page when it comes to this?
it's together. I can show you, this is 1990. All unions came together. There was no individual bargaining. We all signed the same paper. Everything was done. This is a contract. It's binding. 1999. I'm going to show you another. The right page. All the unions came together. Binding. It's a contractual agreement. It's not this long process. What happens is the personnel director sits down with the insurance advisory committee, they hopefully, like, as soon as they hear about any information or any plan design changes, usually the trust comes out, and even in January with them, sits down, tells about what the forecast could possibly be. Lets the insurance advisory committee start looking into different, things and comparisons. When it finally comes down, if it's a bigger change, and we have to have, because it might affect some of the collective bargaining agreements that are in place, then we would all sign. So then all that happens is the insurance advisory committee goes back to their unions, their labor unions, and says, listen, this is the change. We've done the research. This is where we're at. And they say, no problem. It's always been a unified group. It's always been, there's never been any hesitation. There's never been any difficulty getting one union on board opposed to another union or anything. All the unions understand the process, and it works. And it's not long. I mean, for 35 years, it's worked. For 35 years, we have had not one problem.
You have a question?
Yeah, my question was actually really similar to Felicia's. So it sounds like there has not been any indication otherwise that it would be a problem. Like, is there any reason why the lawyer would all of a sudden now be concerned that this would be?
If you want to mess up a good deal, talk to a lawyer.
Yeah, so
But honestly,
I guess that's what like. It sounds like from what you've been saying that it has been working. So why all of a sudden does it feel like?
So there's two parts to that.
Yeah.
The first part is that we have an insurance advisory committee. I don't know. Did you ever find out if anyone else actually has an insurance advisory committee?
There's like one or two other.
Okay, and ours is very, very active.
Yeah.
So people don't have that. Other cities and towns don't have that. And the other reason is that an attorney that works for the city is going to look. The 21 through 23 was by the Massachusetts Municipal Association, and it's a way to push through their agendas for cost savings, right?
Yeah.
So our insurance advisory committee, it looks at best care for the best price. Those attorneys and some mayors in other cities, they're like, listen, we got to save, and we're going to cut the benefits because that can save us a lot of money. I'm not saying that that's what you want to do, but that's where 21 to 23 came from.
But there's no indication at this point that you guys would have any more trouble than you've ever had in the past coming to an agreement.
No, because we did not. After the vote went through, and the votes haven't gone our way before, we were actually expecting like a phone call from the mayor, the personnel director, to say, hey, let's talk and see how we can lessen the blow. When does this happen?
We sent out an email to the mayor, we set up a date and requested the mayor to attend an IAC meeting so we could have that discussion to give recommendations of what we would like to see for the unions in regards to collective bargaining for the plan design changes. And we did hear back, and we did actually schedule a date, which is Thursday. So that's where that's at.
Hand, was it Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, if, to
Please.
just, the union presidents have all already signed a recommendation that has been sent to the city since the vote of this most recent vote, and we're yet to hear back. So the IAC is already still actively trying to engage the city for this current situation that we're in. So, I mean, if
So
you're looking for,
is it safe to say you're mid-process as far as you're concerned, or early process?
I mean, if you're
mid-process?
looking for proof that this, the past will continue to work, we're actively trying to make that happen. So, if we're up against the timeline, we've sent that paperwork to
You're
the
doing
city.
your part. Okay. Thank you.
I just ask a follow-up question.
Sure.
So just to clarify, and thank you for all of your answers so far. So just to clarify, the unions are willing and are on the same page, are willing to negotiate collectively with the city at this point. Okay, great. And I guess my follow-up question, if it's okay, I'd like to direct to the mayor, if I may. I'm curious why it sounds like you think the unions aren't on the same page, and why you think you can't negotiate with them in the way that they've described.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it that I don't think that they're on the same page or that I don't want to try to work with them. I would just say that as we move through this process, the union folks have the people that are advising them, and we have the consultant from the trust and our attorney that advised me. and the HR director. And, as we kind of work through this process, we are trying to take all of these things into consideration as we go. I think that really, from my perspective, the reason why I was on board with looking at 21 and 22 is to be able to get the process where each union has a seat at the table, where we can have a unified way to bargain. I was not privy to the IAC negotiations. I did get a letter. I think it was yesterday.
Signed, I think Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, you were at a
Yeah.
got it
Yeah.
Monday.
And I think that's great because really at the end of the day, the changes are out of our control. Really what's in our control is how we mitigate those changes. And when as we went through the meetings with the consultant and as the other communities are asking questions and there's a lot of us in the same boat, pretty much everybody is going through the same process right now. So I wasn't trying to deviate from that norm that everybody in the trust is working through the same process. I didn't have that level of hubris. I'm basically just trying to learn the landscape and take advice from the people that are advising me in the way that I think it seems reasonable for me to say, like the PEC sounds a lot like the IAC. And it sounds like it operates in a very similar fashion. And what was suggested to us was to go through this process. Now, had I known, maybe I could have said, hey, let's get the IAC. Let's see if we can work this out without having to do this. But that wasn't the process that was kind of laid out before me.
Yes.
Is there some reason that we couldn't pursue that at this time?
Well, and I think
Is there
that's a
reason
great question.
Not to pursue this?
It's a great question.
Office that's worked for
And
all
I
these years?
I would not presume to know all those answers. I think maybe Emily has a
Yeah.
more perspective. I think the reason why I think they're doing it is because if one union gets stuck and there is some sort of impasse, and that could potentially, no, again, I'm still learning this process.
I understand.
And that was kind of
Everyone's
the
very
reason why they were
specific.
suggesting going through this, because it creates a clearer pathway. I love the fact that that people want to work together and we want to solve this together. I think that's great. But I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all know the unions work together wonderfully. And, I think there is going to be more changes down the line, and we know that. And this is kind of anticipation of future things as well. Not saying that we want more changes or that we want bigger things to happen, but obviously the healthcare landscape is continually changing, and we need to be prepared for that. And this kind of allows us to prepare for that better in a way that feels a little bit more structured and helps us to get a better understanding of the predictable cost management of it, as opposed to if we have to impact bargain and we don't really know where we're going to end up with that. We know with this is going to be a 25% mitigation. So we can predict those things better for budgeting, so we don't end up in a position where we're having to lay off or something, which I'm very neutral on the matter. I think that we do have a really good relationship with the unions now, and I do think we can come to an agreement at this time, but I see for the future the advantage of implementing this. What if in the future our unions aren't so agreeable? And now we've been growing in unions. We went from 5 unions to 10 unions. So things to consider.
I can actually point out something in one of the, number one, 35 years. I think that speaks for itself that we have done it, and we have continued to do it, and we have always come to an agreement. There's never been a part where the unions don't come together on this. So, but there has been times, and if you do adopt 21 through 23, it takes 21 through and 22. I know you went through 23. It still takes the collective bargaining rights away. Mayor Derby might have great intentions. I've been here for 30 years. He's going to be here for 4, maybe more. But the person behind him or after him, we don't know. And we had a mayor here that if we didn't have the IAC and we didn't have the strong IAC and the strong unions, we would have lost a lot. He tried to take our dental insurance away with one sweep. We had to file court injunctions, and the Insurance Advisory Committee came through. He had proposals for Altus Dental that was supposed to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Insurance Advisory Committee came together, did a ton of research, and found we actually called them back in and said, you told us all these things, and we did our research, and they're not true. They said premiums would stay the same. They give you a 2-year quote. We found out that some people that went to them, their premiums increased 30 to 50% after the second year. They said they got huge discounts from all these other dental, all the providers. We went to all the providers. They said, no, that's not true. So we called them back in and we said, you know what? We did our research. This isn't true. Now they're salespeople, right? They're selling to the mayor. They're selling to us. We said, and they looked at us and they said, you know what? We actually can't save you any money. We're going to withdraw our proposal. So if you adopt 21 through 23, or 21 and 22, you're taking the collective bargaining rights away. And a mayor, if they so choose to, can move you, take you right out of the trust, put you in the GIC, do whatever they want to do with any kind of plan design change. There isn't. The only thing the PEC does is decide 25% of the costs that's coming on to us anyways is how it gets spent that first year. That's it. That's the only thing that they can decide.
So correct me if I'm mistaken. It sounds like there's a process, the PEC or the IAC. The IAC has been in place for all these years.
Established for 35 years.
35 years, worked out at least 7 different times, major collective agreements with the administration.
Without hesitation.
Actually predates the city. It goes back to the select board. So yeah, all right. Sounds like there was great urgency in this that developed into a special meeting because we have to do it right away. And I want to be sure I understand that that's not the case. That there would be, unless it is the case, that we have to do something immediately on that. But there's some time. How much time is there to come up with something together using the current process? I know that the human resource director said that it would be nice to look to the future and what if. Well, both sides have what it would. Who knows? We just know what worked so far. And I'm frankly a fan of collective rights. I think everyone is here pretty much at the table. If that process is working, how long would it take? Is it within the time frame that we need to get to?
We would need to do bargaining with the unions within the next couple of weeks because we need to have it completed before open enrollment May 1st.
I would just like to point out that we already have a proposal on the table and it's been handed to you guys on, what was it, Monday? Yeah, to the mayor on Monday. And it was just a way to soften the blow of the new, the plan design changes.
Do you all think you might be able to do something?
It's already signed by all the unions and it's proposed. If they give us a counter proposal, we would bring it, he would give it to the IAC. The IAC would tell the unions, hey, this is the counter proposal. Are we in favor of this? And we would sign it and done.
Like there's a communication issue. And I am just going back to Mr. Mayor. I am curious because what I heard you say earlier was that you've had a lot of meetings and have been advised by the consultants and the lawyer. What I didn't hear you say was that you had any meetings with the union reps. And what I'm hearing right now is that it sounds like they're willing to work with the city. We have a history of positive relationships. We have time. We don't have to do this tomorrow. But we have a deadline, obviously, coming up. And so I'm just curious, where's the breakdown of communication that happened, as it sounds like to me, with the unions? Because we all work, and for the most part in this building, it's pretty easy to have the communication back and forth. And I know there's this really detailed timeline that the IAC did provide to us. And it looks like they try to have meetings. So I'm just curious, what was the communication breakdown between the HR director and yourself?
Because I thought we had been communicating like after the vote, we notified, all the unions of vote, then we notified our intent of voting this, sent out those notices. So I was not invited to any IAC meetings post the vote. So
I guess my question
there
was
an intent to bargain.
Yeah, my question was more
wasn't
for the
relayed to me.
mayor in terms of the March meetings, because I saw in the timeline that the union reps, I think it was Kelly, I believe, had sent emails requesting meeting, inviting to the March 16th meeting. I know you were on vacation, the acting mayor wasn't there at the meeting and could have gone. So I'm just curious for the mayor, because I understand your position as well, Emily, but I'm for the Mr. Mayor, what was, I guess, why aren't the unions also able to advise you in the way that the consultants were?
I think that they absolutely, I mean, so just to go back, before the vote, we sat down and we discussed it, and, I felt like that was a pretty productive meeting, and I didn't feel there was any communication breakdown at that point. And, it was, once that vote went against the way that we kind of advised the vote to go, it was a very quick timeline. So, then it was basically the next day where the consultant and our attorney was like, we need to do this pretty quickly because we have a May deadline. And it was presented to us as you need to move quickly. I got the invite. I wasn't there that day. And so that, didn't happen. We're going to meet on Thursday. And, I don't think that there's a breakdown. I think that there's just a very constricted timeline, which, and to be completely frank, there are many wheels turning in the city. And so, this is one important wheel that is spinning, but there are also many others that are spinning too. So it's not like there's unlimited time to be able to, with everybody's busy schedule, if there's a missed meeting, to be able to figure out within that, 3-day period, another time to meet. So, I think that as far as timing goes, it wasn't like there was some sort of concerted effort to ignore the will of the unions or to not participate with them or to not include them in any way. I think it was more about a very narrow timeline that was being kind of sold to me as something that we needed to move forward with. And, I'm super open to talking to the unions about their ideas and how we can kind of come to some sort of an agreement. And my kind of understanding of all this was if we could adopt this, then we would have representatives from each union. We'd be able to sit down and we'd be able to have that process. It wasn't presented to me as a stripping of collective bargaining. That's not how I understood it.
Just to follow up, I want to kind of follow this thought a little bit. So thank you for allowing me this luxury. So in this timeline that I have before me, Kelly Stanton sent you an email on March 5th asking for your presence at a March 16th meeting. She didn't get a response, and I believe that was a Thursday. I know with our Fridays being closed, it's tricky. Then she sent a follow-up email according to the timeline on March 10th with the same request, which was a Tuesday. You did not respond to her, but I don't think you're on vacation yet. I'm not sure. On Wednesday, March 11th, Evan LeBeau, your assistant, responded saying that you were not able to attend, gave some other dates, which I think leads us to this week. And then the same day, however, instead of talking with the ISC, according to this timeline and according to the information we received, that's when City Council received the urgent request submitted by Councilor Peak asking to adopt 32B. Right. So that's what I mean when I say breakdown of communication, because what I'm curious about is why was there no communication from you back to Kelly or to the ISC reps, but instead from you to us asking us to take away this collective bargaining right?
Yeah, I think probably the reason I wasn't able to respond to that email is because I was in a meeting with our attorney. Because
from March 5th to March 11th?
No, whenever that last email was, that the day that we sent that letter out was the day that we met with the attorney. And so really, and to be, completely frank, I wasn't exactly aware of the work that was going on in the IAC at that moment. And so I didn't quite grasp how that request kind of related to what we were working on at the moment.
Do you have any recommendations from the attorney and the consultant in a document that you're able to share with us?
It was a
verbal meeting?
A verbal meeting, yeah.
If there's notes or anything, I think it would be really helpful. For tomorrow,
in the Hill group,
we do have all of
the
documentation from the
adoption.
Thank you. I appreciate that
I would
clarification.
ask for that material.
Sure.
Yeah.
Would get it to us tomorrow morning.
Sure.
I would also ask for any material if needs. I'm not privy to that specifically. And your timeline.
Did you?
Submit those.
The timeline was sent to us.
The timeline.
Yeah.
And the history.
The timeline of that you referred to.
That's also in that
also
email
included.
as well. Yep.
The question.
Were you and the attorney never aware of any of the successes that the IAC has had in the past? Because you mentioned that you just you weren't privy to the fact that they would be able to solve this problem collectively without changing the law. But hadn't it happened multiple times in the past, even when you were?
Yeah, so that,
like, how did you not know?
Because generally these things don't make it to city council, so this is kind of like not a typical thing. I mean, it happened once, but and in 2011, which was a little while ago, like it wasn't. I don't think all of these kind of bargaining successes were laid out in front of us. So kind of no, I didn't really have an idea about that. And it wasn't, I wasn't proposing to change the law. It was just that we were advised that we should look at adopting this section of MGL. So
I'll attest that different counselors had different experiences over the years. I was aware of the IAC and the work that you've done and instrumental information that you provided to the city. So that was something that I was aware of. But that was capture, catch, can. Different counselors had access to different information at the time. So I can certainly appreciate that Mayor Derby was not fully aware of that process. Now that you are.
I am now.
Sounds like that could be well attended to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to note, I'm going to put on my hat for appointments subcommittee that, as Kelly knows, the IAC is actually listed on our website on the homepage under boards and committees, which is how I found out about the IAC. So it's definitely, I appreciate it. It's not something that maybe every counselor knows, but certainly.
I knew it existed.
It exists.
I didn't know the success that they've had over the years,
Right.
necessarily. Those discrete interactions that they had with previous mayors just didn't necessarily make it out.
Filter down.
Yeah, I mean, it's unless there's a meeting like this, it's like a lot of those things happen behind closed doors, and it's just. Yeah.
I have another question. If that's okay. I am curious, and I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Mayor or for anyone else in the room, but I am curious because, we're talking about health insurance. I'm wondering how many, if anyone has a number, whether it's rough or specific is always nicer, how many active employees, retirees, and surviving spouses will be impacted by this change should we move to adopt 21 to 22? Do we have a number? Anyone have?
Don't have a number off the top of my head. I'd have to
Even
go
like a
through my
rough
health
number?
insurance bill.
Is it like 1,200?
Yeah, like, are we talking like 2, 5, 500?
I can't even give you an accurate number
You
right now.
don't know how
Would you be
many
able to?
subscribers there are?
I would have to pull up the bill and go through it. Let me see. Give me a minute.
I would
I
like to
think that we'd
tomorrow.
want to know how many subscribers. How do you create a budget without knowing?
Well, it's different because we do it based off of the premiums for the month. So we don't do it based off of individual subscribers. So we'll break it down into school, city, active, retirees,
Cost per
and then the
month
cost per month.
unit
For
price?
so they are broken down. But then when I get the
sorry,
bill, it's
I-
broken down into family plans,
You
individual
explained it.
plans, and then
I was
MedX.
thinking, okay, you have 1,000 subscribers, 1,200 subscribers.
No, because it's
Some are
broken
gonna
down by
choose, and
plan
this percentage
types.
is gonna choose family, this one's gonna choose this plan, that plan. These are the costs, average them out. This is the algorithm. It's gonna cost us this.
And I think it would be great if we could even get a sense by tomorrow at our next meeting, even if it's very rough. But part of why I'm asking that is because I'm trying to figure out impact, right? Because this is, I forget the statement that was made earlier, but I want to just highlight that I think this is a big impact. Like, this affects, I imagine, a lot of people who work for the city. And my two questions that are really top of mind for me right now is, I want to know what are the actual financial implications that we're talking about? Like, what are the actual financial savings that we're looking at if we were to, move away or that, with these plans? I know we're not adopting 23 right now, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be on the table in the future. And I think we should be aware of that sense. And the other thing I want to think about is, I guess this is more for the unions, is what do you think the impact is if we were to adopt 21 to 22? Does that impact morale? Does that impact other things? How are people feeling about this right now?
Can I just, as far as impact from the health insurance piece, I think this is, as we look at health insurance right now, this is just a significant impact to the city's budget, to the employees' budget. I'm insured by this insurance. This affects all of us, and it's a big deal. This year has been significantly challenging as it relates to health insurance. The trust, again, I was the swing vote that kept us in the trust in 2011, and that was a big deal at that time because, going to the GIC was something that was really not favorably looked upon. And it really worked out for us for a decent amount of time. Over the last couple of years, the trust has struggled and there's been some turnover, but, this particular year with the significant increases that we saw in the cost of health insurance has put us, and, me stepping into this role has put me in a really precarious position. It's a budget buster. And so, it's disappointing across the board for all of us that because a lot of step increases are being wiped out, and that's not fair. And it doesn't, I think really we're kind of all in the same boat here because no matter what, we're impacted by these changes that are happening at the trust unless we decide to leave. And even if we do, the plans at the GIC, basically the trust has to have a benchmark that it has to be cheaper than at least like the base GIC plan right now. I think that, right?
That's what implementing sections 21 through 22, it requires you to use the GIC as a benchmark so that then your plans have to be like either richer than, you can't have worse plans.
So what it does is it creates a standard.
Yeah.
So you can't be worse than the GIC plan. And so, I think that part's important. As far as the impact to budgets and pocketbooks, that's significant. There's nothing we can do about that at this point. Really what we can do is we can try to, balance, and this is where I have a difficult job, try to balance the interests of the city and the budget with the balance of the employees and the increased of costs that they have to bear. And I don't take that lightly. I think that that's a really important thing to be aware of and to find a way to do that in an equitable way where I don't have to bust the budget and start laying people off, but I can be able to give something back to the employees to kind of offset some of the costs that they're going to incur.
But that offset, as I've heard, and correct me if I have misheard, is only for 1 year. And it's in up to 25%, which means you could choose not to go up to the full 25%, correct?
No, I think
it's supposed to be around 25%.
But still, it's for 1 year only.
And I think that
is it for 1 year only?
It'd be for the first year.
For this it is.
Or to lessen the impact of the change.
So then after that, the
and
employees
it could be
take on the
negotiated.
burden of the difference, correct?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that wouldn't necessarily, if we negotiated with the unions, it wouldn't necessarily have to sunset after 1 year.
No. Well, it doesn't sound like that's a negotiation. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I guess my point, though, I want to go back to my previous question, which I don't think was fully answered. And I do want to hear from the unions, too, on that question. But my question is really, I'd like to know if there are specific costs that you have. Like, for example, what is the projected cost to the city if we don't adopt 21 to 22? I think that would be really helpful for council to know, especially for tomorrow. I know budget season's coming. We're in it's tight. Health insurance, we all know it. It's tough. But I think actual numbers or estimates are going to be really important for us, especially for tomorrow, because I don't think we have them tonight. But I do want to go back to the morale question, which is, I also think, very critical, and I would like to hear about that. And I'd like to hear maybe first from the unions, but then also from the city, if that's something that, and I know you obviously have a lot to balance and you care really deeply about the city, but I do want to know what the impact you think will be for the employees if we move forward with this.
Yeah, I think I just want to start out by clarifying these rules a little bit. That as the city alluded to 30 minutes ago, this takes away the collective bargaining in that now it's more of like a collaboration ahead of any changes that are being made. Whereas, like they alluded to earlier, it enables the city to push things through, and then the unions have to deal with it after the fact. So before those changes are made, now we can kind of work all together on the same team to try and figure out what's best moving forward and with some of these changes. Whereas, if the PEC gets in place and these sections are adopted, then the changes are what they are, and then we bargain after the fact, which doesn't really feel like we have a fair seat at the table, in my opinion, while recognizing that the city has responsibility to act fiscally responsible, and that's really one of the hallmarks of your guys' position. What this does is it allows the city to shift cost to the employees. So money's being saved by the city, but not by the employees. And so by shifting that cost, it's just somebody else paying it, right? And that falls on like the families and the employees that live in Easthampton.
So if I hear you correctly, there's some questions that you'd like the mayor's office to answer regarding costs adopting 21 and 22 versus not adopting 21 and 22. It sounds to me like that's not integral into our decision making tonight or necessarily tomorrow. But if the group does not seem to come to agreement with the administration on a plan forward, then what I'm envisioning is the measure being brought back to the council for review before the deadline that you said, which was before May 1st. Is that correct?
It's when open enrollment.
So that would be something that we would need information for, not necessarily to drill down on unless we needed to move forward immediately tomorrow. And it doesn't sound like that's the case.
I think it would be helpful if we don't have it by tomorrow, if we're able to get that
Well,
information.
that's what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
asking, can
Yeah.
that be
Oh, you're asking if
provided
we
to
can.
us?
Okay.
Can that be
And
provided to us,
Can I just
next week, something like that,
Yeah.
soon enough?
Can I just clarify something really quick?
Please.
So, as far as like negotiating changes, like we don't have any ability to negotiate changes. What we're getting from the trust is what we get from the trust. Like that's literally set in stone. We have no control over that whatsoever.
Well, it's how
we mitigate.
Voted, right? And we voted the way the unions wanted us to
No, I
vote.
understand that, but
Yeah.
you're a part of the executive board, right?
Yes.
So when they start talking about plan design changes, and so I only go refer back to our other your predecessor, Monica Kane,
Yeah.
and she would go in and talk, and they would talk about some plan design changes. She would talk to us right away, like beginning of January, and be like, listen, this is what the trust is talking about. And we would share with her. And then she would go back and say, listen, I think it'd be more palatable for all the employees. Can we do this, instead of doing a deductible?
Right.
So we do have, and I understand what you're saying, but in the executive board, which it's great that you're on it,
Yeah.
you can actually swing the trust or try and put your input in there to try and make it a more palatable thing for the employees.
And it was very fast moving. Like we said, these decisions were literally made days before we had our IAC meeting, and I presented the information as soon as I had it. And I do agree, but as part of the executive committee of the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, it is my responsibility as an executive member to make sure that the trust is healthy first and foremost. So I have to make decisions on that board in regards to the health of the trust. And then as an IAC member, I make decisions as part of the city. So I'm trying to think of both as an executive committee member, and that's how I have to approach that, right? So like to keep the trust alive and active, that was the decision that they had to make. And I do understand the impacts it has on all of us.
Right. You have to look out for your employees too.
And
And you can tell the trust, I need more than 3 days to meet with the IAC. You can. You can say, listen, we need a week to talk to the IAC and get their inputs on it. And you have the power to do that. And they will wait. They'll give you that week. Just because they try and force you to do something, like you have a voice at the table.
Yeah. And so, I think that, that's a piece, and it sounds like, communication could be improved as we move forward around these changes. And, I mean, it does make sense to be able to bring some of the concerns of the employees to the trust to be able to steer that. I think as I stepped into this, there's two choices, and, we tried to do what was palatable for the unions, which, that was, it was going to cost the city more money. And that didn't pass. So then now we're into a place where we have these changes that are being kind of hoisted upon us. And really what is the discussion is, how do we mitigate that choice to be able to make this more palatable for the employees, and balance that with the fact that, as we look at the impact of the budget already on health insurance, there has to be some mitigation on that end too. So, I think that as we move into this, understanding that this is, we don't have the ability to negotiate any sort of plan changes. But we do have the ability to try to figure out how to mitigate some of these increased costs. And I think that, as we move forward, the reason why I brought this forward from the advice of the consultant and our attorney was because that's what I wanted to do, was to be able to have, and it wasn't, like I knew the IAC existed. I didn't know that they performed in, a function that is really similar to the PC, but is without, that wasn't something that I had been made aware of. And so, as we move forward, really what I think is the most critical piece, and whether, and I think that part of this is going to be deciding, well, if we do adopt this, like what processes get stripped away? How does it harm unions? Or if we decide that this isn't work, how do we figure out a path forward, right, where we can make sure that we don't get stuck in a mire where we hit that May 1st? Because the reason why our attorney said that we needed to move so quickly on this was, he said if one of these pieces gets stuck and we don't make it to that May 1st deadline, then we face some sort of like significant liability. And I don't know the specifics of that, but that's kind of just the way it was presented to me.
So is it possible that the attorney wasn't aware of the role of the IAC here?
He is aware of the IAC.
In Easthampton, and understands?
He is aware of the existence of IAC.
And its role and function and how it's functioned in the past.
Right. So I would like to point out that one of the...
Not having that knowledge, I can't imagine anyone...
So, and I did, I read the letter that you have sent to City Council, and, John, I would say your differences are the Public Employee Committee is reactive. The Insurance Advisory is proactive. Okay, they go out ahead of time. And the collective bargaining rights are, if you adopt 21 and 22, you can tomorrow say, listen, you know what? We're going to go to Maya. We're going to go to Health New England. We're going to go to anybody. We don't have any say in that. There's no collective bargaining. There's no avenue for us to say, no, wait a second. That's going to affect, and maybe not you, but maybe the next member. We can't say, we have people that have special needs children. We have retirees that have huge, long medical histories, and they can't get the care that they need, or they have to switch doctors and have a whole new care plan. Speech pathologists, like it takes months and months for people to get that with children with special needs. If you adopt 21 and 22, you can take us and put us to any plan you want. The only thing the public employee committee decides is 25% of the savings, how we spend it. And that's 25% that's been shifted onto us anyways. That's the collective bargaining rights. The insurance advisory committee, that keeps our collective bargaining rights. And the one piece, when you were just saying that, the attorney said that, we're not pulling out of the Hampshire County Trust, right? We're going to have insurance. If there was a hang up where we couldn't decide on something, we're also going to have insurance. It's going to be the same insurance that we have right now. And in the worst scenario is that you say to us, listen, we can't afford anything else, and that's it, and that's where the plan is. Because unless we are all in agreement to leave the trust, we're staying in the trust, and that's it. We have a contract stating from was it 2001 that we started the trust, and all the unions signed that. It's a binding, and the city. It's a binding contract. So unless we come to agreement, that stays in effect. I would like some of the parts in your letter, I would say like it's tough. Like inability to negotiate with bargaining units, the city will be unable to enter into required good faith bargaining and the unions regarding with health insurance plan changes. Those negotiations cannot lawfully proceed. That's not accurate. We have 35 years of collective bargaining. And then the risk of health insurance suspension, we're not going to suspend it. We're in the trust. We're not leaving the trust no matter what, even if we say, well, you read our proposal, right, that we just gave you. Okay, so we said, well, maybe we can shift a little bit of the percentages. You turn around and say, there's no way that we can do it. We can't financially do that. We're still not leaving the trust. And we're not going to be suspending our health insurance. Everyone's going to have it. The attorney, whatever he told you or whatever, this makes it look a lot more urgent and drastic than it actually is. And that's not how this has worked for 35 years.
I have a question about, I have two questions. One's about 23 and one's about the PAC. So first question is for the mayor. If we were to adopt 21 to 22, is section 23 off the table permanently in your mind, or is it a possibility that it would come back to us in the future that you would want us to adopt 23?
At the end of the day, never say never. I mean, you just don't know. Like, we don't know. I mean, what do we do if the trust becomes insolvent?
Okay, so it's still a possibility.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and honestly, I think as we move forward, we're going to have to start really seriously thinking about all sorts of options around health insurance, because this is, like I said, this is one of those things that is a budget killer.
Yeah.
And so, and as I wrote that, that was kind of in conjunction of like what I read from, and I wasn't trying to be doom and gloom, but that was the feeling I was getting from our attorney. And then as I kind of read those sections, that was the impression that I got, which I don't know is false, but, and maybe it's just unbalanced by the historical kind of reality. But, I think that I didn't want to put us in a position where I was going to put any employee's health insurance in jeopardy. And that was kind of what step in the muck that much. And I feel like if I did something to jeopardize our health insurance, that would be a pretty big misstep.
Well, it sounds like there's good news that everyone will still have health insurance. It's just we're figuring out the relationships and the back and forth. So my second question then is, if we were to go forward and we form this PAC and then we have that 30-day review period, and if there's no agreement that comes to bear, my understanding from reading through is that then we go to it's like a 3-person review panel, right? So city, someone from the unions, and then an outside person. So I'm curious if you know, or if you have thoughts around who would represent the city on that panel. And I also saw in the language that there is a cost to that. And I'm curious if you have a sense of what the cost of that process is.
I think as far as who would represent the city, that would kind of be determined to see who was best suited for that position at the time. And cost, I don't have any idea what the cost would be.
I think that would also be an important thing for us to know, because is it $25? Is it $10,000? I think that would be important.
Per hour?
right? Who knows? So yeah, if there's any information that can be had around that, I think that's an important piece of it.
Go ahead.
So
I
please,
just
we
want to
haven't heard
say,
from you, Christine.
ASHME 413 union is really upset about this. We're a New Year union.
Could you
We're
identify-
paying out our,
Say your
sorry.
name loudly.
Oh, I'm not talking loud enough?
No,
Oh.
say your name.
Christine Zadonic, sorry. My
Just for
union's
the
very
public.
upset. We are a newer union. They're paying out a good amount of money every 2 weeks in dues. And now they feel like, why did I join a union if I'm going to start losing my bargaining rights? So I actually had one person crying. I'm going to cry for them that they could lose Blue Cross Blue Shield and it's going to cost them and they could go bankrupt because of the cost of their co-pays are going up and medicine could go up. I don't know. I just feel for this person and losing Blue Cross Blue Shield, if that ever happens, is going to hurt our union members and all the city employees. Personal experience, I do have a relative that this happened to. She went bankrupt because they went from Blue Cross Blue Shield to Harvard Pilgrim. And I don't want to see this happen to anybody.
So just to be,
Please go ahead.
just to be super clear, we're not intending on
No.
leaving the trust at this point at all.
But
We're
it could
not.
happen in the future.
I mean, we don't know what's going to
We
happen
have
in the
to-
future.
We have to assess all our options, especially if the trust, I am very hopeful and optimistic that the trust is going to be financially well and revive itself. But just in case, we do need to assess other options. So
And
I
that's-
just want to show this as morale
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Because morale is in the dirt. And we're hoping with the new administration, it would come up. But consensus is they're really afraid that it's not going to because of this.
And I would say, we have no intention of leaving the trust unless the trust becomes insolvent. And we can't stay in the trust.
Right.
And we understand that, Blue Cross Blue Shield is written into specific contracts, so that is not something we want to deal with. And really, I think the crux of this is making sure that we just figure out a way to, do an equitable reimbursement cost share with employees. Because again, what we had put forward and what we voted for was the increased premium increase, which was at the behest of the union. And so, I mean, I think that shows that we're trying to work towards this in a collaborative way. And I think that, this proposal was not meant to do anything other than try to streamline the process of us being able to figure out how we do that balance.
Right, but it takes away from us bargaining, which is part of our unions, it's part of our dues. And on top of it, the other thing I want to talk about is over these last few months, we feel like we haven't been told everything. And I do have information that I've gotten from another community that has kept me up to date and I've gone to Kelly with. Then we found out there was going to be the vote in February. I came into your office with it and I said, do you know they're voting? And you told me no. So it's like miscommunication was going. And like he said, we could have sat down with Emily and went through well, she thinks this is coming up. Well, let's see how we can figure out, maybe you can go back and instead of having co-pays from $30 to $65, maybe it could be $45 or $40. So it's just, I don't know if everybody else wants to say, we feel like we haven't had the good communication. And that's not fair to our members or our, if anybody else wants to talk about how they
Mr.
feel
Murphy,
on that.
I wholeheartedly believe you when you say your intention is not to change the insurance. The issue is once these sections are adopted by the city, if you ever choose to move on or not run again, these sections are in there. And it is what the city has. And so any successive mayor can do whatever they want. So I do believe you when you say that, but this is a forever thing, right? Adopting these sections is not this administration thing. This is a forever thing for the city of Easthampton.
Is there anyone else from the unions that have not spoken yet that wanted to add anything? Mr. Zerwin.
Yeah, Adam Zerwick. I'm the president of the teachers union. I can speak to morale. I mean, our morale is low anyways because we were very underpaid, very overworked, very underappreciated. I have my paraeducators. I don't know if any of you are aware of how much money they make, but they're below poverty level with what they take home. They carry the insurance for their families. I have paras who are like rethinking, is this what I can do for my family? Because I have a family plan health insurance. I am a single parent. I take home every 2 weeks $600. That's not really affordable for them. And then these rising increases, it's just eliminating any pay rates that they get. And they're very concerned of what to do if changes are made.
Is there, did you have a specific question for the last two speakers?
Not for the last
three
two
or three
speakers.
speakers?
No, not for the
No,
last three
okay.
speakers.
Do you mind if we go? I'd like
Sorry, I want to just point out,
I'd
we
like
do
to-
have someone online who's
That's
raised
what,
their hand.
that's what
Okay,
I'm looking for
perfect.
next
Yeah.
is someone online. If anyone would like to raise their hand or speak up,
So we
please
have
do
Maddie
so.
Palmer has raised her hand.
Maddie Palmer. Maddie, please unmute yourself and so we can hear you. Can't hear you yet.
Hi, yes.
There you go.
Hopefully you guys can hear me. Yeah, thank you, GP. Thank you, everybody in the room. I just appreciate all of your time, and I think this is, yeah, a really important discussion. I just wanted to say that as, like, a newer person to the city, you know, coming in and not really having a lot of this, like, historic knowledge, I'm really thankful for those of you in the unions that do. Yeah, I just want to say the thing that I want to like push in this moment is that communication in every aspect of life is so important. And I think that for us as members of the various unions, it has often felt like the biggest impediment to us being a part of the conversation is just like fair notice and like transparency and communication. And I know that like these are always things that are like works in progress, but I would just say that like it would be my hope to see maybe less of this like urgency, we need to get it done, we have to do it, and more willingness to like be proactive and preemptive and yeah, just like try to really work together. I think that would be really fantastic. So yeah, I guess I'm just like echoing really what everyone is saying is that like this has worked for so long, and I think that it's important that we not just put it to the side. And yeah, I think that the PEC thing sounds good in theory, but I don't know who said it, but this is true. Like once we vote this in, it's voted in. There is really no going back. When you accept an MGL, it's a big deal. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say, but thank you again, everyone, so much for your time and all your like hard work towards like this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. Is there anyone else online who'd like to speak? Don't see anyone, do you? Okay. You had a question.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, so if now we know that the IAC does basically this whole thing where they figure out what is best and they go to the negotiation table, and we also know that you're not at risk of losing the insurance imminently, why are we still thinking about moving forward with this right now in this rushed way? Like, is this something that you still feel like it needs to be considered, or is it something that we can look down the road at and not have to have this emergency meeting tomorrow to pass it? Because it doesn't seem like there is actually that urgency anymore.
I mean, I think there is urgency because we do have a tight deadline. But I guess
See on this 21 and 22.
here's what I would say is, you know, I think that this is enlightening in a way because, as you sit in isolation and you have people advising you to do things, sometimes it's harder to see the bigger picture. Like, for example, my impression of when I read it, and it just could be my lack of experience with it, like I didn't see the ability of 21 and 22 adoption to be able to just remove insurance and step into something. I didn't read that. And so, like, if I thought that was going to be the result of this, I would not have put this forward, because what my desire was to have, a process, and which I didn't realize could be done through the IAC, to move forward, because that was what I was advised, through, and I'm happy to share those documents, so I think that if I had known that, I wouldn't have even put this forward, because I would have said that we have a meaningful path forward where we can probably figure this out and we don't have to like take anything away from anybody. But in that moment, in that time, when you get out of the meeting where they're like, you have to adopt this, and everybody's like, yes, we have to adopt this, and then you talk to the attorney and he's like, yes, you have to do this, you got to send a letter to the city council, it becomes, I guess you become a little insulated. And so, I think that was not the intention to, like, there was no intention to try to switch health insurance. There's nothing I can do about the increasing costs of healthcare. There's nothing I can do about the plan changes. Really what I want to do is try to find a fair way to kind of mitigate some of those costs. Right. So, I don't necessarily, if there's a path forward, I don't necessarily see a high level of urgency, if we can, work together to figure this out. I mean, I think what my concern was is if we don't hit that deadline, that things could happen that could have a negative impact on employees. And that was kind of my concern, which is the reason why I brought it forward and asked for, action.
No, I hear that. And so now that you do know and you do have all the information, maybe that action doesn't actually need to take place tomorrow.
I mean, it's advertised. It's up to you guys. I think how you approach that.
It really is in your hands. You made the request, and if you're saying, yeah, had I known, I wouldn't have gone and made this request in the way that I did.
Well, and I have no problem if you wanted to,
You want to withdraw the request?
And that's a possibility. I think I'd like to talk to maybe the president after the meeting and discuss options for how that would work, whether we could withdraw it for now and have our meeting this week and see how that goes.
If you were to withdraw it, it would still remain on our agenda, or we could postpone the meeting. That would be
postponing the
option.
meeting.
Yeah. Postponing the meeting and saying, geez, the item's still on our agenda. It's something that you've made a request about. It sits there.
Yeah.
And it comes back at the next meeting. It's been reported. But if we postpone the meeting, then we wouldn't have to.
Well, we do have a meeting on Thursday.
Waste the time.
So it's not like, it's not like we have a meeting in 2 weeks. We have a meeting on Thursday. So yeah.
It sounds like some process could occur, and you might even come to a resolution.
I think that's fully reasonable, and it's also, I think it's the way that we should be looking to move forward, because if there was a missed email, if there was a missed step, there was not an intentional snub. It was there is a whirlwind of activity happening in the corner office. But I would say that again, as we came into this, we wanted to vote for what the employees felt was fair. And then when that didn't go, we wanted to figure out a way to be able to mitigate those costs in a reasonable way. And this was the path that we were pointed down. And so, I just want to make sure that that's really clear. This wasn't like an attempt to try to remove bargaining rights from anybody. But I think that this is a good part of the process, is this clarification and this ability to kind of gain some of this history and this ability to be able to, dialogue in this way. So I think that path probably makes sense to me, so we can sit down and have a discussion around this and see where we're at. And so I think, if the president felt comfortable at, delaying this or
You could make a request and a suggestion, and the president could consider it and make a decision whether or not the meeting would be postponed. We can't do that as a committee.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
It isn't something that we can
that's what I
come
was.
to agreement
Right.
with, but we can make the suggestion, and you can.
I mean, I think
you can make
there
the
is something to be
request.
said for meeting on Thursday before this goes forward. And so just that, I think, is reason enough to say, let's, I don't know how the process that you want to use to, whether you want to cancel the meeting or whether you want to convene the meeting and then close it, or however you want to do it. But I think that from my perspective, I would like to meet with IAC before.
I would think that a message could go out with postponed on the meeting schedule, should that be something that you request and the council president would advise. But
we can, so because we're in the structure of the rules and government subcommittee meeting right now, we can make a motion now or in a period of time from now to perhaps recommend a continuance or recommend a postponement, and then allow the mayor and the president to talk after this meeting is closed. It sounds like there's not really much more for us to discuss at this point.
I would be happy to entertain such a motion should everyone have the feeling that they've had their say here tonight and address the issue. I did want to, before we did get to such a motion, I did want to say I know the mayor's veracity at trying to do and be a mayor who gets out and talks to people and does his very best. I know what some of the pressures are because I see it, and I know just how much activity is swirling around when he talks about it. So I am fully believing of you in this situation. I understand. I'd want to convey that to everybody, and I know you want to meet regularly or have, as Mr. Dunham has suggested, to act proactively. It's not possible on your first few weeks or months on the job to be acting proactively in every facet of the community at every time. Meanwhile, keeping the eye on the ball for the future and juggling all that you have. Is there some way that you all can think about getting together on a regular basis to be proactive about the insurance? Because we all know we're facing problems with the insurance in the future. No matter what plan, what issues.
We would be happy to have monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, anything.
To do monthly meetings at this point, given
Especially the
how
dynamic
fast
nature.
things have been moving.
I would applaud that, yay.
Yeah.
And then that would
I'd be happy
make
to.
good sense. I think it would be a good use of your time and everyone's time. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to have this committee recommend a continuance to allow the mayor some time to meet with the IAC.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to recommend a continuance of this matter such that it would go on regular schedule.
Such that the mayor.
Such that the mayor would have a chance to talk with the
Yes.
president about that and decide. Sure. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We wish you the very best in your discussions, and we look forward to it. And I am sincerely hopeful and believing that this is all going to come to a quick fruition. And I'm so glad to be hearing about the monthly meeting suggestions, because I think that kind of communication is the kind of communication we need. Thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you so much, folks.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.